Hey guys, this is Pedro back with another interview, this time covering First Stand 2025. For this occasion, I'm here accompanied by Yeon, the ADC of Team Liquid, coming off of their victory in the LTA Split 1 competition. Now moving on to Korea to fight off against the best in the world. So Yeon, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do this interview before the start of the proper competition. First and foremost, gotta ask you, what's life like in Korea? How have you guys been been settling into the country so far?
To be honest, we just got here like maybe like 2, 3 days ago, and we've been very busy, packed schedule, and like just going out for media day, and now we have another shoot, sorry, media day, asset day, and then tech check. So not much time to actually enjoy the area, and I'm a bit sick, so kind of sucks, but have to deal with it.
Have you guys been able to practice at all? With in recent times, or has it just been like literally go 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 from the time you guys landed in Korea up until now? And of course, as a media member, I got to apologize for making the life a bit harder on you. So still, I digress.
Um, I think we just had our first like scrim last night, which was like a good warm up scrim for sure, but that's the only time we actually got to practice really.
Okay, no, no, I do understand that. I mean, looking at your career, I mean, it's been a good while in which we've last seen you perform on the international stage in Korea. That one being back in Worlds 2023 in Korea, and I believe that was your first time in which you made your debut on that level. And then I remember also back then on that time, the team didn't really go on didn't have a good showing at that moment in time. But nevertheless, from that point on, we've seen plenty of like highs and lows for yourself within this Team Liquid squad. Highs being the most recent title, the lows being, of course, not making it to playoffs in last year's World. So, nevertheless, I gotta ask you now that you're returning in Korea, having another shot at the other teams, how you kind of look back at your form from back then and your road to get back to this point.
Yeah, I will say in the last time I was in Korea for the international stage, I was very lost. I was like very new. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I think I definitely have a lot more structure within the team, and I think I have a bigger voice, and I know how I want to play. So I'm very excited to play.
Yeah, and I also remember like back then, I remember some people within, I believe, TL that talking about how you kind of like composed yourself within that time and back in Worlds 2023. I believe I mean, I think you even said it at some points in which you kind of practice nonstop, not even prioritizing that over like your own health, and that kind of was a detriment to how you performed on the international stage. When the opportunities actually count. So, I mean, what adjustments have you been made to just sort of not try to be in that kind of situation on top of just having to mature as a player?
Yeah, I will say for sure the last time I was in Korea in like the first international stage, I definitely lost my confidence and like my way of how I wanted to play the game. But ever since then, I think I have a very steady way of thinking and very strong-willed mind.
Mhm. I mean, another thing that I want to ask you in terms of progression is, I kind of alluded to it earlier on the conversation, but moving on from Worlds 2024, it's becoming so close to qualifying for playoffs, but having to lose to FlyQuest and then having to go from that to having a little bit of a tough road in the road to Split 1 playoffs, and then winning in playoffs. Taking down your last set of opponents there. Um, Talk to me about how the team has kind of been bouncing back. Besides just having to decide to run it back for another year and just having to, tweak things, in terms of like cohesion and also like tweaks within the meta. How we kind of look at the process and what has been the most difficult part and also the most challenging part in just having to make it all happen.
Yeah, I will say we had a lot of ups and downs for sure within this year. I think that we definitely had to bounce back from very bad weeks, and then we managed to win it all in the end. But we definitely do have to brush up on our individual skills, and that will translate into team play.
I know I asked you this at the very start of, well, roughly around the start of this year, but as we now look ahead to the first stand, how do you kind of look at the team's current strengths and weaknesses, from your point of view? What do you kind of see within these two parts so far this year at this point?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a completely new patch and there's no more lane swap and it's a fearless, so it's very hard to say how this tournament will turn out, especially because it's so many new variables and it's just completely different game than it was when we were playing our playoffs on every other region. But I do think our strength for me and Core at least will be our laning phase.
What has been the one thing that stood out to you in terms of just having to deal with the new patch and just having to fit that into an already tough schedule, between landing in Korea and the first match of the competition?
Yeah, I mean, definitely for sure the most important thing is laning phase, especially because there's so much lane swap. I think people can be less greedy about what they want to play, like very unique pocket picks, I think will come out a lot less, especially. So I think Fearless might be a little bit more boring than people expect it to be.
Mhm. I mean, how do you kind of look at, or how do you kind of compare that to the other teams that are going to be taking part in the competition? Have you been able to have a look at the other squads that you're going to be taking on in this competition? And if so, what has been the biggest aspects that you saw that you've seen that contrasts with what you guys have been showing so far?
To be honest, I think my coaching staff has been looking through all the games, and I think all my teammates have been looking through all the regions, like finals and like the playoffs. I think we have a good understanding of how most teams want to play, so I think we're very prepared in that aspect.
Like in what fashion, if you can
Just like the
elaborate?
champions they like to play and like the play style they do and how they actually contribute to how they win the game.
Has there been one team that kind of stood out to you the most, that in terms of like maybe like a like most difficult team to tackle? Has any one of them taken into your has any one of those teams been present in your mind with that difficulty, to consider?
Not really. I think most teams are pretty similar in a sense this tournament coming around. I think it's just going to be a very exciting to see what teams have their own ideas coming into a new patch.
Mhm. With that in mind, I mean, we've seen plenty of teams emerge um, to be at the top of their game and be at the top of their league. I mean, looking over into the LEC, we've seen Carmine Core, win Winter Split and then be the team to represent the LEC and make a bid to contend in first stand. Want to ask you sort of like KC, and their ascension. I mean, given that you guys and KC are going to be representing the West. What are your thoughts on them? How do you kind of look at their style or mode of play?
I do think that K Corp is very centered around their mid jungle. I think they're very solid players, and I think the rest of the players are just very solid players. I think they played well in the finals, and they just managed to be here. Similar to us, I think we just played well on the finals and stage, even though we may not have had the best like regular season or like the playoffs before that.
Mhm. One more question because I'm getting the pinks to wrap up. As you now look ahead to competing in first stand, one scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you in your squad to not only do well but also like potentially win this competition?
I think if we show up on the day, I think we have a very good chance of beating a lot of teams and upsetting.
Mhm. So what's the number? Can you give me a
I'll give it
number?
like a 7 out of 10 to win.
Okay, perfect. I really do appreciate that. And I do appreciate you answering all of my questions for this conversation. Jan, thank you so much for the interview. Really do appreciate it. And best of luck
Yep.
for the competition.
Yep. Thank you.